when you're ready.
It has long been debated whether or not animals should be used for biomedical research. There are many benefits to using this kind of testing, but the question is whether or not those outweigh the detrimental effects. There are many factors that play into the argument, especially coming from the ethical, economic, futuristic, and social cultural lenses. An analysis of these four standpoints shows that for the most part, animals should not be used for research. But in certain areas, like the biomedical field, there is often no available alternative to the process.
Thinking about animal experimentation from different perspectives can drastically change one's viewpoint on the subject. The ethical lens tends to turn people against the process as the moral values within humans veer them to think of an animal's sentience and the harm they go through. Studies by Kellert and Berry describe the numerous factors affecting animal research opinions. For example, older generations focus on the practicality of the process and its advancements in the medical field, while younger generations think from a moral perspective. The species of animal being used can also affect public's opinions. Domestic animals such as cats or dogs spark negativity toward the process, while mice and fish don't receive the same empathy. Although there are many moral conflicts to animal experimentation, realistically, the medical field won't be able to simply stop performing the process anytime soon, as reliable alternatives are not readily available. To compromise, scientists and investigators have compounded the 3 R's tenet, which describes the process of replacement, reduction, and refinement. Replacement meaning replacing the use of animals with other systems, such as computer programs, reduction meaning reducing the amount of overall creatures being researched, and refinement meaning modifying experiments to increase animal welfare and minimize pain. This solution seems a worthy compromise to appease both sides of the argument in a realistic sense. However, the 3 R's have their pros and cons. Pros include the further focus on individual animals due to the reduction in quantity. They also result in an increase of accurate data as the animals' behaviors depend on their environments, which are improved by refinement. The rule also has consequences such as the possible excess harm toward individual animals as the increase in focus and decrease in quantity might lead to intensive research, which could cause excess damage.
With a high cost of animal testing, simply viewing the examinations themselves only hits the surface of how outrageous the receipts can be. But with such a market system, taking out any step will have substantial effects on those involved. It seems that keeping the economy at bay is only distracting us from seeing the true animosity of our actions. It is a concerning factor of many losing positions of work. However, we study alternatives, many occupations unheard of can replace those modified. We can create a system helping animals. But again, there is so much more at stake than jobs. With faults in animal imports, possible threats to our world and country are rising in popularity. It's up to us to find the errors in treatment and tactics and better the cruelty in our network. Not only is animal testing paid with just physical labor, with just physical money, but also in human labor. The use of currency itself is just the surface, as species require proper care and treatment to be kept in a sustainable state of being. Proper care, treatment, and checkups are a must. Even with there being no exact estimation in how much money is required, incorporating a few species will decrease the overall cost of maintenance and acquisition. At the cheapest, these can range from the thousands, though in terms of toxicity, specifically, bills can skyrocket. But for the labs themselves, a single experiment does not include the findings or evaluation of a sole purpose, as it will take much more data to see the full effect. Animal experimentation has become part of our society. However, if we're able to discover and begin alternative methods, how can we pair occupations with them as well? And this don't necessarily have to be from factory positions. Even the road to the end of animal experimentation has brought life to new positions, helping in recovering the species scrutinized against their will. For example, cruelty investigators, humane officers, health inspectors, and veterinary appointees can help respond to possible threats and provide healthy animals with fully encompassing checkups. From what we have now, the job market is only going to grow more comfortable and accustomed to working around animal testing. What we can do now is prepare for the economic impacts that might follow immediately after any sort of change.
The futuristic lens helps focus on the possibilities that can help move away from animal research. And yes, from an ethical standpoint, the world needs to move on, but it cannot because these technologies are not advanced enough. However, there are certain technologies that in the coming years will indeed take over animal research. The first alternative is cell tissues and cell cultures. This is when cells from the liver, intestines, and kidney are placed and grown on clear plates and flasks. This is used in medicine discovery and in the cosmetics industry. A real-world example is the bovine cornea. The bovine cornea is used on the Draize test, which is typically done on bunny rabbits, but was substituted with the bovine cornea to help stop the usage of bunnies in the testing of eye chemicals and eye substances. The second alternative is in silico methods. In silico technology is completely done on a computer, and it is really popular because you can simulate how chemicals will react without the live chemical or the live animal. The most popular format of this is the QSAR format. This is used in drug, chemical, and drug discovery. It is incredibly user-friendly and extremely cost-effective, which is really good from an economic standpoint. However, with all technologies come pros and come cons. The biggest pro is that it lowers the usage of animals and shows to the medical community that it can be done. The second pro is that it lowers the cost of animal testing. And because most R&D in the medical community is expensive, this is a huge win. However, the biggest con is that it's not taking over fast enough because these technologies are not advanced enough compared to their animal counterparts.
Finally, looking at animal experimentation from a social cultural lens tends to make the topic seem a little more beneficial to society. This is due to how the viewpoint discusses benefits to humans, such as developing new medical treatments, testing the safety and efficacy of drugs before human use, and how alternatives, while being developed, aren't accurate enough to become commonplace yet. In the past 100 years or so, an abundance of new medical treatments and procedures have been developed thanks to research on different species, especially rats and mice. This ranges from the invention of insulin injections to pacemakers. Furthermore, animal research was extremely crucial during the rampage of the COVID-19 pandemic, as scientists were racing to find a vaccine. Rodents are also being used to find different ways of detecting brain disease, leading to cutting-edge research on Alzheimer's and dementia. Testing has also allowed for chemicals like household cleaning products to be tested thoroughly before entering the market. This ensures that the products humans are using are safe and will not harm them. Because of how similar animals are to humans, they are a great depiction of how most people will react to a certain product. If this method was not used, the chances of being exposed to more harmful chemicals would increase exponentially. Finally, while alternatives are being developed, they are simply not accurate or commonplace enough to replace animal testing. Technology simply cannot be a replacement for an actual living organism that can mimic the systems of the human body. Animals also have shorter life cycles than humans do. So, the effects can be studied not just across one lifespan, but across multiple generations. However, one alternative on the forefront of development is the 3 Rs. As previously stated, it is more about lessening the extent of animal research than eliminating it completely. Through this, we can hopefully lessen the cons while still keeping all of the benefits. However, for now, it is important that we keep what works until something else comes along.
The debate over animal use in biomedical research has 2 sides that are both worthy of consideration. But thinking through the ethical, economic, futuristic, and social cultural lenses, the points backing up the negative side of the argument outweigh those of the positive. However, at this point in time, reliable alternatives are not readily available, so the 3 Rs is likely one of the best realistic and attainable solutions that both scientists and the public can get behind. The accuracy and benefits of this rule could aid as a placeholder for researchers as ethic and economic-friendly substitutes are developed for the future.
Grace, excuse me. Describe how the content of your team presentation was changed as a result of group discussion.
So at our first glance, we decided that animals should be used for biomedical research due to the actual medical advantages, but we still thought that there were some consequences to its use. However, after we discussed it more in depth, we decided that it shouldn't be used, which is because most of our arguments veer toward the negative side of the argument.
Thank you. Bianca, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Alexa's findings.
Alexis' findings changed my thinking as they showed me that although alternatives to animal research are available, they aren't advanced enough for regular use, and this negates the push to simply just replace animals with other methods of experimentation, because doing so would just be a lot more complicated than the conclusion suggests.
Okay, thank you. Avery, what is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports that you decided to exclude from your team presentation? And why did you decide to exclude that?
So I would say we possibly the positive impacts upon the economy that come from animal research. While it's good to view both sides of the argument, it seems that allowing this would give too much upper hand to what we're opposing, and that was from my part.
Okay, thank you. Alexis, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's solution or conclusion.
Okay, so from the ethical lens, because it was the use of the 3 R's and it weighed the necessary changes that are actually needed in animal research, and that's important because that can help further the development and changing in animal research.
Okay, thank you. Another round of applause.